Hi everyone, it's Kevin again. Welcome back to Sticks and Stones Wood Carving, and we're gonna keep working on the owl we just changed the eyes on in this video, and we're gonna use a little bit of paint and see if we can dress him up and make him look more expensive. So what I'm gonna do here is, right in the beginning, is I'm just gonna take that little brush that I used in the last video, okay? It's got a little bit of an angle on it. It's not super wide. You can use any brush you want, but right in here, I think in this one, we're gonna try and make this owl look totally different. So I'm gonna paint the circles in his eyes here. We're gonna do that white and see what it looks like, okay? So I got my cap full. And let's just see. We add some white here, how much different that looks. Now, what I like to do with a lot of this stuff that I make is, you know, play with the paint and see what you can come up with. And just make them look that much more different and interesting. Sometimes the weather's bad, I don't feel like carving. I'll take a carving I already made, like this one, and see if I can make it look a little better. Just by playing with the paint, okay? Sometimes it works, other times I just prefer the natural wood, which a lot of people do. A lot of people don't like to paint their carvings, I understand that. I like natural wood myself. But art is art, right? Some people really like the painted ones. It helps to keep them from cracking a lot. Seals up the wood better. And you can get a lot of different effects with it. And it's one way to just dress up your carvings a little bit more. Sometimes you have a carving you don't think is that decent, and you give it a little bit of paint and it really comes out nice, you know. So don't be afraid to get a paintbrush out and experiment. Okay, so that's the first part. Well, he doesn't look too bad, huh? Let me come over here and check them out. All right, we'll mess around with a little bit more after this dries, and we'll add another color, and we'll see what we can come up with. Sometimes you'll have to even it out, take a step back, look at it, see what you end up with. Okay, so once that dries, we'll go back in and we'll add another color. I'm thinking black for the next one. Okay, now that that white's dry, I'm gonna go around it and circle around with black to even those eyes out, and we'll see what that looks like. Again, you can experiment with any colors you want. This helps kind of even out your carve if it's not quite carved right. There's all kinds of things you can hide and change with just a little bit of paint. So that's our experiment here with these basic wooden owls, 15-minute carves. What we're gonna do is dress them up as much as we can with some paint and see if we can come up with something that looks totally different and a lot more interesting than just the basic wooden carve that we started with. So I'm gonna take some black and we'll put it around here. Like so. bad. The other side. I mean, there's so many things you could do with just slopping some paint on. I'm not even really being super meticulous in any way. I'm just trying to make it look even and a little better than he did when he didn't have the paint. I mean, you'd be surprised if you have an owl that's not the best carved, but you have the shape of an owl, how much better you can make him look with doing stuff like this. When you really didn't think it was the best carve, but it is shaped like a bird, so make it look like a bird. Okay. Down here on this side. Something like that. We'll add a little white in there later. Okay. See how that just brings those eyes out, and now he looks a little bit better. Okay, that's not too bad. A little bit more on that beak here. Now what I want to do is go back to the white after that dries, and we're going to dress up some of his wings and make those look a little bit more interesting. Clean my brush here. It really doesn't take much to change them up, does it? Now, if you're in a rush, you can always take a blow dryer too and dry that paint. It does help speed up the process. Okay, I'm going to go to my white again. And let's see how else we can dress him up a little bit. Down here on the wings here. What I want to do is just put a couple of pretty much dots like this. On the bottom there. So all I'm doing is dabbing some paint, maybe down here along the wing. Make him look like he's got those mixed in with his feathers. I don't claim to be any big painter or anything. I'm just trying to fool the eye a little bit with some optical illusions, just putting a little bit of spots here and there with white paint. That's all I'm really doing. Just to dress them up and make them look that much more interesting, you know? And it does make him look a little more interesting. You could put a couple dots down here if you want. Make him a spotted type design. All I'm doing is going around real fast, randomly, but trying to keep some kind of structure as far as the way the dots go. So it doesn't look too all out of control. Doesn't take much. Same with up here. Anything to give them a little splash of color. And a lot of times just having a little color makes him a lot more appealing and attracts the eye, especially when he's sitting on a table somewhere and you're selling, okay? So, that doesn't look too bad. I mean, all I'm doing is splashing paint, really. And if I don't like it, I'll add a little more black or something and change it up, right? You don't want to go too wild with it. But I could do that on his chest. Give him a couple of flecks of white there. And basically all over his body. You could think of them as spots, you could think of them as feathers. Just try to stay pretty symmetrical from one side to the next. Like when you do his wings especially. I mean, you could be random pretty much on his head or on his chest. Try to keep the design flowing in the same direction, in other words. Across the bottom of the wings here. Let me move this out of the way. He's starting to look a little bit different. Up in here, I might do some. I'll probably add some black to this, but for now, we'll get a little color in there. Okay. Like so. Like I said, sometimes you just need a little blacker to insinuate some shading. So the more you play with the paint and step back, the more ideas you'll get. I like to do it in stages. I'll throw a little bit of color on it and then I'll come back with the black and change that up a little. Right now I'm just going for just not the boring same old wooden look. Okay, we're trying to make them interesting. Yeah, that should do it for now for white. See how much that changed that owl up though? Okay, I'll let that dry, or I'll hit it with the blow dryer and I'll come back and we'll try and add a little bit more shading and clean everything up and see what he looks like. Okay, the whole idea here is to keep messing with the paint, explore your artistic avenues, okay, and try to come up with something that was totally different than what you started with, right? And to see if we can make the saleability actually improve. Right, I'm going to take more black and see if I can change it up a little more and clean him up at spots. Like up in here. Sometimes just a little shadow gives you a whole different look. And it accents certain parts of the carve. That's why I splash some white first, and then I'll come around and add some black. And let's see, a little darkness over here. I could put some black in between the white. I mean, play with it, you know? See what you can change. Don't be afraid to experiment with everything. just randomly going around adding color. And eventually you'll figure out a method to your madness. Okay, sometimes, now he's pretty dark where I burned him, but a lot of times I like to add some shadow underneath here with black, okay? Just to make that pop out a little more. Sometimes in between here. And down the middle of his back. Doesn't take much. Maybe I'd want to separate his tail a little, you know. And the rest. So you can see where I'm going with all this. Okay. And eventually, that bird will look totally different than, whoops, got my finger in the way, than what you started with. All right, so I'm gonna play with the paint more. I'm gonna do a couple of these. And I'll show you kind of like befores and afters of what we actually did with some of those real basic owls that I showed you before. We made them a lot prettier. We made them maybe more appealing to some folks. Other folks are just gonna like the regular wooden owls, okay? So again, don't be afraid to play with paint. It definitely makes a difference. And gives you more experience as an artist also. So what I'm gonna do is play with this and see exactly how interesting I can make it, and I'll catch everyone in the next video. Thanks for watching.